Manic and Chill. We are live. It is the last episode of October. Halftime adjustments. Because we are, I guess, technically halfway through the fantasy season. If you're lucky enough to get into the playoffs, we're right about the halfway point between week 8 and week 9. Shane and I, we're back. We are here every Wednesday night, same time, except for in 2 weeks, Shane. We're going to be having a live event on the channel. We haven't really plugged it. There's going to be a live event in this time slot. So if you're watching this feed every Wednesday, you'll be getting that show, which will be details will come out next week at some time. But it'll be a pretty fun event. A lot of engagement with our members. So if you're a member on the channel, you can become a member. Trades and Chill tier, $3.99. Hit the link in the description to join. You'll get that event. There'll be some perks, but it'll be open to everybody. And it'll have all of our creators on there, at least a lot of them. Be a special event here coming up in 2 weeks. And other than that, Shane, what's going on, man? It's been I didn't get to do the morning drive with you on Monday. We usually do the morning drives on Monday and Friday.
Yes.
But I wasn't there. We haven't had the chance to talk some Dynasty in the last couple of days. What's on your mind?
It's been I haven't talked to you in ages since 6:15 last night.
We did the roster review, but not like just talking shop. So
right. We did a roster review. I'm good, man. It's crunch time, right? We were just talking about we have a couple of teams that are 6-10. But because our commissioners aren't crayon eaters, the last playoff spot goes to the team with the most remaining points. So we're both still alive, which is pretty awesome because in crayon eating leagues, you're done, regardless of the fact that that your points against is third in the league and that your points for is fourth, but somehow you're in ninth on record. So yeah, I'm just going through those leagues, trying to make some moves for this week. I refuse to give an inch in any of the leagues where I'm battling. I'm not giving up any weeks at all. So a lot of day trading, trying to pull off a lot of day trading. And the margins are getting thinner as the year goes on.
Yeah, that's why you acquire extra picks. That's why you acquire things that you can trade or throw into deals to get even just a week or two of a start that you need. I have a question for you from that strategy angle. In those leagues where you're going after the points, I mean, I think the one we were looking at, you were like 20 points behind the playoff spot.
Right.
And I was looking at that. The average scoring in that league is like 180 a week. So, I mean, 20, even less than 50, it literally could swing in one game, 1 week. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So at what point, with 6 weeks left in the regular season, because we're up in 9 right now and most go to 14. I mean, at what point do you flip the switch? I mean, that league has no trade deadline. A lot of ours don't. So you can really push it until literally the last week or two if you wanted to. But like, at what point do you say it's unrealistic? Because I think we both know those two teams we were looking at, one mine, one yours. I mean, they're mid teams. They're probably not winning the title, but there's not much incentive to try to go to the bottom because it's too late to get to the bottom because there's usually 3 or 4 teams that are just so shitty that it's impossible to go any further than 4th or 5th worst. You know what I mean? So there's no real movement you can make other than to try to stay afloat. But like, when do you switch gears? When are you willing to like just sell to the other contending teams there? Are you willing to do that now? Because I have another question for you about Scattaboo.
Well,
because that leads into it. But when are you willing to flip the switch? How many more weeks?
Well, I'm not willing to do it this week because you tried to make a trade with me, giving me Mr. Obtuse Angle Scattaboo.
And I didn't realize your spot. When I saw it, I was like, because normally you respond to trades pretty quickly. But like, you didn't respond to that one for a long time. So then I looked at the league again and I was like, yeah, it is points. I mean, Shane would be dumb to tank.
Yeah.
Because there's no incentive for you to go to the bottom. So
let's do some math, right? I'm pretty much holding on for dear life unless someone overpays. You know what I mean? If someone comes along and they want to knock my socks off for Ramondre Stevenson and I don't even remember, name another player, whatever. Unless you completely blow my mind with the offer, I'm probably not going to accept it. And your offer was actually good, and I did think about it. And then I was like, nah, let me just push. I'm only 50 points out or whatever it is, right? And like you said, it's high-scoring league. All it takes is 1 week, someone starting Spencer Rattler and Andy Dalton and getting 9 total points out of their quarterback position for you to be able to jump into the playoffs over them. So, and we don't play in leagues with deadlines. So that gives us so much more leeway. Because to be quite honest with you, my assets might be more profitable for me to hold on to them until the playoffs, even if there's less buyers. You know what I mean? Because everyone that's in the playoffs at that point is pot committed usually. So they're going to do what they need to win.
I mean, there's a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, usually the types of trades that if I'm in that range, the trades I'm trying to make to stay afloat, back to what you said earlier, where you're just trying to stay afloat. Like a lot of the trades you're targeting are just commodity trades. I'm just trying to fill a hole. I'm not trying to give up my first. I'm not trying to give up pieces that are cornerstone assets that are injured. I mean, sure, if there's the right deal, fine. But I'm not looking to necessarily fill my last spot or two with like locked and loaded dynasty starters. I'm trying to find just a random fill in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where kind of the discussion comes up as to when are you willing to be a seller? We talked about this in the voice chat earlier with Scadaboo specifically. Like if you're one of those teams that had Scadaboo, but you're not, and there were a lot of Scadaboo teams that were near the top, you know what I mean? Because he was putting up top 12 numbers the last month.
Yeah.
But let's just say you're in like 5th place with Scadaboo. You want to hang on. You clearly don't have him anymore. Like, how are you evaluating him? And then I want to look at some trades that involve him since his injury, because it was a bad injury. You were probably watching it live.
Yeah.
And, I know you're not a Scadaboo fan, but
so this is how bad that injury was. I went from not being able to stand him at all. Like I don't like anything about that dude.
You cried
before that injury. I didn't like him on a personal level, on a football level, on a fantasy football level. I didn't like him at all. Nothing about him. As soon as he was down on the turf and I saw that injury, I went, oh, I feel so bad for that kid. And now I like him because just going through that, seeing what his ankle looked like. Yeah. I'm a fan of the kid now because he's going to come back and I'm going to be rooting for him when he does. But anyway, sorry.
No. I mean, I think the conversation earlier was like, I got asked in voice chat, are you on the buy or the sell Scadaboo side? And I think it's both, right? Like there are teams where I'm willing to buy him. There's also teams, if I have him, like I don't have any time to wait for him. He's not really an asset. That range of running back, especially once you've suffered an injury like that, you're just in the, I need enough of them to get through the season range, but there's no dynasty value in Scadaboo. Like maybe he is a slight bit higher on the pecking order in terms of guaranteeing to have a workload when he's healthy over a guy like DeAndre Swift. You know what I mean? Like a guy that can get bounced around that is in his 6th, 7th, 8th year. But like other than that, there's no dynasty value. Buying a player like him for his like dynasty value per se doesn't make a ton of sense to me. However, what's the trade value for him if you're trying to sell him? And what are you trying to look for? Because it feels like there are people out there. I mean, I can go through some recent trades in a second, but how are you handling him if you just lost him and you're trying to replace running backs? Like if you're trying to get somebody in that spot, what are you doing?
Oh, can I get Tyrone Tracy and another running back to throw in there? Who else is that, Lloyd? Can I get Rico Dowdle and someone? Probably Rico. People aren't going to like this. I take Rico Dowdle and another piece for him if I could get it done. I don't know what that other piece would be, but like this week, let's say I'm in a couple 2 tight end leagues, and for some reason I didn't realize that I have Goddard and Njoku who both have buys this week, and I don't want to take a 0 there. Can I get a tight end and a Rico Dowdle? And part of that is just that I'm buying into Dave Canales' coach speak. And it sounded like Rico Dowdle is going to be the one in Carolina. But I could see, I actually want to buy Scadaboo on most of my rosters, like even competing rosters if I can, because I actually think he will have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for, steam going into the offseason or over the offseason, I should say, whenever he starts practicing again, whenever he's out on the field. I think people are going to steam him up because he's a player that people wanted to succeed. He's a player that people like. Outside of me, everybody likes the guy. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted him to do well. So he's actually, because he's got that likability factor that not a lot of players have, I actually would buy him if I can. I only have him, so I can only speak from, I had him in one league and I traded him 3 days before he wrecked his ankle in a giant big trade. But now, if I did have him still, and it's a competing team, I would move him if I need a running back. I need to win this week, and I need a running back and a tight end, something like that. I'm looking at pieces that I can add to my roster to try to get me immediate wins. Because if I'm moving him, I'm doing it because I need points right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking simplistically at I need to fill in a running back spot where he existed, get somebody else now. Like, I think any of these guys I'd be willing to take back. Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre. I mean, Ramondre's injured now, so that's a little scary. Like, we don't know what that's going to look like, but kind of shows you the volatility. All those guys sound great to plug in your lineup, right? And then as soon as anything's injured, you're like, I don't like them anymore at all. They're literally, when they're not available, they're worth nothing other than when can they get available again. Travis Etienne, probably you got to throw in there.
Yeah.
It feels like
he was the running back 12 on KTC prior to this injury, something like that. Like, he's right around there. So anyone that's in that range of him, I'm just trying to geesh.
Well, yeah, now, and now with his injury, he probably falls down into the low teens, mid 20s, maybe down to 30.
16 right now. So like Javonte Williams, I would take Javonte Williams for him. You already said Chase Brown.
That's this one. I think you can even go further.
Derrick Henry.
I don't know which of the Vikings guys I prefer. It's probably Aaron Jones, but probably one of those down the stretch will be one that you'll wish you had. Zach Charbonnet, I saw an interesting one. Would you trade him for Zach Charbonnet? I mean,
no, because Zach Charbonnet, Walker's there.
Would you trade him for Ken Walker?
No, definitely not for him.
So basically, you don't want either, right?
No. I prefer Charbonnet of the two. I don't know that I want to pay Cam Scatterboo to do it because
my point is, though, you declined Cam Scatterboo for both. So you're basically what you're saying is if you're looking to replace Cam Scatterboo, it's not with one of the Seattle guys right now, right?
No, I need someone that I know is going to get me points. Like, I'm more confident in Rico Dowdle giving me points than either of those two guys easily.
So a few others. Then I want to actually look at some Scatterboo trades that do not involve running backs. Would you trade Scatterboo for Trey Benson?
I think not. Not right now, no. I think no.
Okay. That was one that I think most people agreed no, because the Cardinals feel like, I don't know what direction they're going. They may just have a lot of running backs now. That seems like they want to use like 4 different ones. And so who knows? But that could be one that if you did that, if you got Trey Benson in a third coming down the stretch, like we could talk in 3 weeks and Trey Benson's a guy everybody wants. Like, that's how quick it can flip. Kamani Vidal.
No.
Kamani Vidal smashed 2 out of 3 weeks, Shane.
He absolutely has. If you're looking for points right now, though, you know what? You got to just put away. If you put away your dynasty brain and you just go, I'm just trying to win this year. If I want Cam Scatterboo, I'll buy him again next year, or I'm in however many other leagues, I'll get him in those leagues. Yeah. Kamani Vidal would be good. Yes.
If you're going down that far, like to Vidal, you don't have to do it straight up. Like, ask for, you could try a second and Vidal for Scatterboo and a third. That's how you get the actual like dynasty value extracted out of Scatterboo. My take is Scatterboo doesn't really have dynasty value. His value is just you feel a little safer because he's a rookie that showed that he was pretty good. It feels like a guy the Giants will give a lot of opportunities to because he's, even in like a month of him being relevant, he kind of felt like he cemented his like face on the team. You know what I mean? Like that there will be an excitement when he comes back, which will create excitement in Dynasty. But other than that, like, I'm not missing out on much if I don't have him, other than getting to ride the culture wave that will be fun when he comes back and he scores his first touchdown. Like, that's where it'll be fun. But I don't know if I'm actually losing anything by making those specific RB for RB moves. And at the same time, if you're a team that wants Scatterboo, any of those players I mentioned should be on the table that you could sell for him. Ask for a third on top. You know what I mean? If you're like, hey, I'll give you DeAndre Swift for Scatterboo and a third, and you don't care about DeAndre Swift, that's also a fair deal the other way. You know, like it's a fair deal on both sides. You just can't be sitting there going like, oh, well, I'm going to hold it over you now because you have the injured guy and you need something from me. Like that's kind of where the fair deal is for me on either side of that. You want to get into some trades that don't involve running backs, though? These are some interesting ones. You ready?
Yeah. Yep. And
I think,
frankly, cross-positional trades are usually easier to evaluate.
Other than one of these trades are all from the last 2 days.
Okay.
I am shy. If these are the prices, then I'm selling low on all my Scadaboos.
Do people
right, trade?
Real quick, people like Scadaboo a lot.
Yes,
like,
that maybe I've underestimated
Sean.
that.
Look at Sean in there, right? Sean's indicative of the DD community as a whole, and there's hundreds of people in there, and the general vibe I get from most of them is that they like Scadaboo. If people like him on a personal, visceral level, they want him to succeed, and he did well. So people are going to convince themselves like it's only a broken ankle. And a torn deltoid. I don't know. I thought deltoids were in your back, by the way. I did not know you had deltoids in your ankle, but yeah, apparently. So you should know. You got muscles all over. But his deltoid injury. So, but anyway, it seems relatively minor. So people definitely want to buy him. But anyway, good.
All right. So here's some cross-positional trades, and I think you would say yes to all of these if you could get this return for Scadaboo. So these are all within the last 2 days. So clearly, after everybody saw the injury, knew he was done for the year. You would trade Cam Scadaboo for Devontae Adams.
I'm getting Tay. Yes.
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 Yeah. You all of these deals you're giving away Scadaboo. Okay. You would trade Cam Scadaboo for Daniel Jones.
Oh yes, absolutely.
You would trade Cam Scadaboo for DK Metcalf.
How bad do I need a wide receiver 3?
No context.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. We'll put that one in. We'll put that. That's one of those deals, despite what DS says, that's one of those deals I'll let sit to the side and come back and think about it.
Okay. I know you'd do this one. You would add 2/3 to Cam. I almost said Scam Scadaboo. You would add 2/3 to Cam Scadaboo to get a first.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's a running
You would trade Cam Scadaboo for a first and a third?
Yes, I would if I was just adding thirds.
Cam Scadaboo for a first, yes.
Yes, also yes.
Would you add Cam Scadaboo to JJ McCarthy to get Patrick Mahomes?
Sweet baby Jesus, that's an early Christmas present. When is Hanukkah?
Happened.
They're already celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas. Good for them. Wow.
And then this one, just a random deal. Someone sold Cam Scadaboo for Jahan Dotson and Jacoby Myers in a third. So all these other deals, and then there's that one. And that's the person that was like, give me anything for Cam Scadaboo. Just get him off my team. Give me some stuff. So I took the third and Jacob. I mean, Jahan Dotson has no value. So
well, you know what? That was after they watched Jahan Dotson moss whoever the giant defender was and just drag him into the end zone. And they're like, oh, they're definitely getting rid of AJ now. He's going to be the wide receiver 2 in that offense. Sure.
And they realize that does not help when he gets traded to your team after the game.
No.
Doesn't help at all.
Yeah, you don't generally get retroactive points, no.
So, yeah, I mean, judging off these trades, and again, these are just the last 2 days. You can go back 4 days, and I think a couple of those probably happened like at or around or even right after the game. But this tells me generally, and some of these deals can be complete outliers. We see outliers all the time, but most of these deals are still getting close to like a first-round credit for Scadaboo. You don't see that a lot with an injured running back. I remember the days of even 4 years ago, when you had like the Breece Hall injury and the Javonte Williams injury and the Cam Akers injury and the J.K. Dobbins injury. Like you were lucky to get a first for those caliber of running backs. And here we are. I mean, this shows the power of that ADV. People like the guy. They're willing to still attach. I could give you 5 guys if they got injured, I'm gonna be like, that guy's cooked. I don't care about him at all. You know what I mean? Chase Brown had the same injury, and he would not even get the same respect as Cam Scadaboo.
You could just, if you just go down the list, right? Go down the list, KTC, DeAndre Swift, Jaylen Warren, ETN,
Anybody that's been
Charbonnet,
around for more than like 3
Dobbins.
years, people are done
Yeah.
with if they get injured.
Benson, Dowdle, all of them. You would never even think about them again. Jordan Mason, you'd be like, you wouldn't even remember who those people were in 6 months.
Yeah. Well, that's the Cam Scattaboo takeaway. So halftime adjustments was our theme. We kind of get into what that actually means. Anything that comes to your mind that you've just completely, I mean, typically a halftime adjustment, you can't totally change everything. But anything that comes to your mind where you're like, I'm going to make it a point the rest of this dynasty season to do that you might not have been doing before? Like anything where you've just kind of done a 180 on in terms of how you value things? I mean, I have a couple macro things, but I wanted to defer to you. Do you have anything in mind? Anything that comes to the tip top of your brain?
No, nothing that's actually coming to my brain like that. I mean, obviously there's the players, which is the micro. And maybe some of the, I would like to, I can't no, because the roster construction, the way we build our rosters, like I already have a bunch of the things that I would like to have, even if I didn't choose the right players. You know what I mean? Like I have a bunch of quarterbacks. I have a bunch of running backs. Now, quarterbacks, I've been lucky, but running backs, maybe I didn't get all the ones that I wanted. You know what I mean? Maybe I didn't have enough of Tyrone Tracy, for example. But I certainly have enough of Rico Dowdle. I guess just micro things like that. On a macro level, I have been thinking about this, and I thought about this today. I have to find a better way to hold on to assets for a longer period of time. Maybe not throwing in that extra second on a deal earlier in the season just to get it done, or before the offer has even been rejected. Maybe I need to do a better job of starting off with not my best offer, but an offer that's close enough. I think a lot of times I'll send out offers and I'll go, well, this second will probably make sure it gets done, when I haven't even sent out an offer without the second. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of teams right now. Well, not a lot of teams, but there's a few teams right now. I'd love to grab a second and go buy some tight ends or running backs that I need for the next couple weeks to get me by. So I guess a better job of asset allocation, which probably true in a lot of areas of life.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was just looking. So I track in all my leagues, I track my picks that I have. So I could pretty much always tell you like how many picks I have overall. And right now I'm sitting on, and this is atypical for me, but I'm sitting on more seconds. Well, not more seconds than thirds. I always have a ton of thirds because thirds are just literally like what you collect. And I usually end up with way too many of them come draft time. But I actually have a surprising amount of seconds. I have more seconds in 2027 than I do thirds, which is usually way the opposite. Normally it's like I have a ton of thirds because people just give those away for anything. You know, a warm body in a week, they'll give you a third. You know what I mean? But I already have 16 extra seconds in 2027, and I have 32 extra seconds in 2026. So I think 45 leagues, I have 77 seconds. Now, a lot of those are leagues where I've probably collected those. So it isn't like I have 77 seconds to spend. But I was curious when you said that, because I'm usually the same way, where I look up and it's like, man, I really needed a second to get that deal done. Somebody will post you know when it burns me, Shane? When somebody posts a like auto accept trade block and they'll put a guy out there that's worth that they want a second for. And it's a guy that I know can be like a starter the rest of the year that I would consider paying a second for. But then I look and it's like, damn, I don't have a second. That's when I usually miss them. And it's because what you said, like you throw them into a deal. You're like, I can always get that pick back. I'll get a couple seconds back. And then you start to realize that there's not a lot of things that trade for a first. There's a lot of things that if you'll take a package of stuff that includes seconds, you can get those. And that kind of feels like where it lacks by not having them. Any thoughts on that? Because you were kind of going down that same road. Like you have not enough seconds to just throw around.
Yeah. What's the hit rate on second round rookie picks? Isn't it something like 17%? I haven't looked at it in a while, to be quite honest with you. In a while, it's probably a couple of years. Last time I looked, it was something like 20-25%, depending on your qualification of a hit. But that's the point. That's why we like to move them in season, because I'm buying something that has, even if it doesn't have long-term value, it's giving me points right now, which is probably more than I could ever get from a second rounder. But to your point, I have lot of leagues where I go to make trades and I go, all I have is firsts, right? All I have is a first. I have 2 firsts. I need to buy something, but I don't need something that's so expensive that it's a first and I can't find anything, you know what I mean? And I don't have the second to buy what I actually need at the right price. Like I could overpay and pay it first, but my brain won't let me do that. You know what I mean? It's just like, no, you're not going to pay a first for Tyrone Tracy and I don't know, just to add a wide receiver to that mix that's okay, but not great. Like my brain, right. My brain just won't let me do that, even though I need the points. So it's like, well, how else can I get there? Well, how else I can get there is to just start accumulating seconds, like you said. Make sure that I have a bunch of them. And then, yeah, I have to use them in season. I'll worry about the off season when it comes to the off season, right? There's worse things than going into the off season with too many seconds because I wasn't able to spend them during the year. But it's very rare you're going to get through a year on a good roster where you're not, or a team that wins, that you're not going to be able to use seconds to buy players that you wouldn't need to.
Well, and I think the problem with using hit rate data is that doesn't capture what you can do with a second, right? Like part of a hit rate is what can I do with the second all around the time that you can trade for it. Like, sure, it converts to a player when you hit draft, but for the 2 years you have access to that pick, it's still counting in that hit rate, or it should, if you use it to buy something that scores 200 points over the course of a year and a half. You know what I mean? Like you have to have some intentional purpose when you spend a second, but I can even go through some of the players. Like there's been players, Cam Scadaboo is a perfect one. That was a second rounder. You know what? Right now, he doesn't really show that he's worth more than a second. But there was a window where his price increased and his demand increased where you could have done a lot more flexible things with him than what a second rounder is worth. And that same thing goes for other players in this class. You know, there's going to be that window that probably happens on Luther Burden or Jaden Higgins. It's already happened with like Harold Fannin or Mason Taylor. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times second rounders are players that are in demand for a reason, whether that's draft capital or profile or their opportunity or their landing spot or some of those things combined. So it's not just what's the hit, because the old hit rate data, you know, the old Peter Howard hit rate data, like it's a top 24 receiver season. Who gives a shit if you're wide receiver 22? 22 and 28, one is a hit, one is not. The impact to my roster is minimal. So measuring it that way, I think, is a little bit flawed. And that's assuming that the player is just going to be on your roster and you're going to absorb their whole career. Oh, yeah, you had 2 seasons inside the top 24. Like, that's not the dynasty game anymore. So I think seconds have to be viewed as how much am I capturing when I trade a second for a starter for the rest of the season? And I think people only evaluate it from, they hear the name Dynasty and they go, if I trade a second right now, Shane, if I give you a second and you give me back DeAndre Swift, okay, and you tell me, oh, that's not going to be a smart investment of your second rounder because in the offseason, nobody's going to want him and he's going to slowly kind of decline and he'll eventually fade out of the league in 2028 or whatever, and you didn't get any long-term value. But then I can measure, and that's why I do the WAR and draft pick equivalent, is because I can probably measure that over, let's just be conservative and say after 12 weeks of starts from DeAndre Swift, that's like the rest of this year and then maybe sometime next year, he has a good role. But the good role is not even promised year to year. But let's just say I get 12 more starts from him. And half of those starts, he gets me 15 points. Like kind of on par with what he's done. You know what I mean? He's not an RB1, but he's typically been, you know, in the 12 to 15 point range for most of his career. What is that worth? If I told you you're going to get 6 games of 15 points out of a player, what is that worth?
At least
and I think people look at that. That's not worth a second, but I could equate the numbers of what you get out of that 15 or 17% or whatever the hit rate is. Like that's probably worth getting 6 games. You know what I mean?
I was going to say that's 100% worth a second to me. 100%.
And we don't view picks like that though. We view them as soon as I spend them, they're losing value. And it's like, yeah, but they don't really have a lot of value until you use the value for whatever you're getting it for. Like just picking players and then saying, okay, I'm going to hit on 25% of them. Great. To hit on 5 players, you have to make 20 second rounders. You know what I see when you tell me 5 out of 20? I see 15 wasted opportunities to get something that's probably a lot easier to just project I'm going to get. That's the thing. If I trade a second, barring a guy has a career-ending injury or something like that, if I trade a second and I just get the games played by something I know is going to play, like typically that's the better use of the second. So that's one of my things is I just looked at these picks, dude. Like there's no reason I need to have seconds on a lot of teams because I probably have 10 teams that have 2 or 3 seconds each because I've punted. You know what I mean? But the teams where I have a couple seconds, like there's no reason I should not be filling gaps on my roster the rest of the way with those seconds.
I like this Nick pick 6. At this point in the season, if I'm a contender, I'm using those seconds to upgrade, not for depth. Okay, 2 separate things there. So if I'm trying to trade a second for a player, it's it's not depth. I'm literally trying to plug that guy into the lineup right now. That player that I'm trading for has to take the place of someone that's already in my lineup. So yeah, I'm already upgrading there. That said, if I can just upgrade at another position using that second or at another player, if I can jump from and don't quote me, but like say Nico Collins and a second can get me to CeeDee Lamb, well, of course I'm going to do that because it serves the same function, right? It's going to pick me up hopefully 4 or 5 extra points, which is all I'm really trying to do with that second anyway, right? I'm checking, and I don't want to make fun of John here, but right, let's just say I love Noel, so I wouldn't trade Noel, but let's say I'm starting a guy like, I don't know, Higgins in my lineup and he's giving me 4 points a game. If I can get a second and get a guy that's giving me 10, 11 points a game, well, then I've upgraded. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to trade for a player that I can put on my bench. I'm not trying to do that. If they can just be added to my bench, or if that's their only purpose, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? There's just not at this point of the season. Maybe if I wanted to do that earlier in the season as to a way to like buttress this part of the season, so that I don't have to trade. And I'm like, oh, well, I have a plethora of options. Fine. But right now, I'm trying to buy players that can go right into my lineup.
Well, and John's point, too, about he's holding on to guys like Noel and Higgins and Tootin. Like, here's the thing. Those guys, they're fine to hold on to. And the reason why they can still work for you in place of a second is because somebody's probably still does value Tootin in your league or Jaden Higgins in your league. So maybe they're not a second because they're not as flexible. Not every single team is going to be looking to trade for that specific player. But you can use them the same way. Like if you have those guys on your team, that's why we talk about draft season. And I always got killed in the comments on our mock drafts because I would draft players based on their sentiment. People like this guy. People are going to give this guy more chances than another guy if he fails quickly, right? That's kind of why you pick some of those players. It's not because you think Jaden Higgins is going to move into that last wide receiver starter. He may never, Shane. I don't know if you heard our talk on Matthew Golden. Ray and I were talking Matthew Golden. And, Ray's comp for Matthew Golden already. He's already moved to Matthew Golden's basically like Rashad Bateman. And when people heard that in the voice chat last night, they're just like, that's so gross. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. You may say, you look back and you go, Rashad Bateman was a bust. He never had a top 24 season. I think he had like a 29 wide receiver, 29 in points per game was his best or something like that. Like it never got to top 24. So he's a bust. He was a first round player too. So you're like, okay, he was even more of a bust than a guy that was drafted in the late second. I think he was like an early second round rookie pick in his class. But here's the thing. Even 5 or 6 years later, he's still a player that if Rashad Bateman ripped off 3 good games in a row, 2 good games in a row, people would be going, all right, I like him now. He held some likability. And he also went through a lot of peaks and valleys, right? Like you could have used Rashad Bateman as a second round-ish value in a trade many times since he was drafted. You know what I mean? Like that's how you use those players. So just consider what can they do for you. Like I'm not scared of trading anybody away that's in this range. I'm not scared of trading away seconds. And it's not for quote unquote dynasty value. If I have Bashal, Tootin, and Jaden Higgins, you know what I'm not considering them, Shane? Cornerstone players on my dynasty build. They're assets that I think have a good runway over the next year or two to be contributors and or things I can throw into a trade. But I'm never scared of moving them to get something that I need today or tomorrow. But it has to be something that I need, Otherwise, I'll just keep those types of players or keep the picks. But that's how I want to use the picks. I want to fill holes where I need them. I have this thing where I go through my teams every week and I go, you know what? That player is good enough. And I force players into the lineup that I know have suboptimal matchups or they're kind of fledgling in their usage. Those are the teams I should go. And you know what? This guy has a good schedule, or this guy's really running hot. Let me go pay a second and a third for Rico Dowdle and get the 3 games I could get from him. Like, I got to do that better. So
you'd look like a genius if you had Rico Dowdle on a lot of your rosters. You're gonna look like a genius again starting this week. I mean, you brought up a couple of points, right? So just moving off the picks and talking about the players portion of this too, right? There's players that hold value that aren't foundational pieces that you can use to get multiple pieces that will help you right now, and even pieces that could be long term. I don't want to, again, not foundational pieces, but they're pieces that you could use beyond this year. Like I'm looking at some of the rookies. Like I'm looking at Travis Hunter, and I go, and I know he's the apple of everyone's eye after what he did in London. But I look at Travis Hunter and I go, well, if I can turn Travis Hunter into, 2 pieces that I can throw into my starting lineup right now, I think I'd be better served to do that in some situations, not every situation, obviously, but in situations where I'm competing right now. And Travis Hunter, it's like, say, start 12. It's nice having Travis Hunter. It'd be nicer if I could split him into 2.
Yeah, and speaking of that, if you want a roster review, hit the QR code. We like doing roster reviews. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we talk about. Different ways to view your league economy, different ways to use assets. We did one yesterday where it was kind of a full punt rebuild. Yeah. And, there's sometimes some harsh realities with how you think you're building. I think we're both more, if your team's tanking, especially if your team's like more than a year out, like there's very little on your roster today that's going to matter in 2 years. I mean, just think about how much turnover there's been in the last year or two. You're telling me you're staring at a few of these players right now that are moderately young and useful. You're telling me they're going to be relevant in 27 or 2028? Probably not. Like those guys can go, even if they're in their 3rd season and they look like they're kind of at their peak. Like by time you're turning this team around, that's year 5. That could be a new team. It could be a whole new coach. Like a lot of things change quicker than we think. We tend to think, oh, I'm rebuilding. And then you have these 9 players that you're rebuilding around, and 5 of them are Trey Harris and Jaden Higgins and Matthew Golden. And you're like, dude, maybe one of those guys is an actual top 50 asset in 2 years or less. Maybe.
If I can use Matthew Golden for starting pieces right now, absolutely I'm doing that. Absolutely I'm doing that. Again, like I'm willing to move Travis Hunter. And the return I get probably wouldn't be, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of people might not like it, but it'd be enough for me because I'm trying to win right now. And there is a balance, right? I'm not saying do this in leagues where you have no future rookie picks, because then you have no way to replenish your roster, right? You can't just buy all win now pieces when you don't have anything to sell off. You don't have any parachutes to pull, right? My rosters that I'm willing to go extremely thin or not thin, but I'm willing to use players like Travis Hunter. Well, it's probably a roster where I have like a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Bijan, or you know what I mean, or a wide receiver like Jamar Chase or a Malik Neighbors, whichever. Just I have parachutes to pull if I don't have the picks. But in a perfect world, I want to make sure I don't do that when I don't have a team that's depleted in picks as well.
And Piro like why? Yes, we did do the Trinity show earlier. If you were a member, you should have got access to that. But if not, you should be able to still get access to it. Dropped it, I think, at like 1:00 today. So we did the Trinity this week. It should go out to everybody on Friday, I believe. But the Trinity's been super helpful. Like literally, I'm using that information to go out and kind of stream receiver more aggressively than I asked. Like simply just using the Trinity usage. So tune in if you're not already a member. You can get that on Friday. But yes, members only, you should have that. Another thing I wanted to bring up to you, Shane, was the quarterbacks. And we were talking about the 2026 quarterback class. There's already, and it goes into 2026 picks, but we'll just focus on the quarterback portion of it right now, because I think I did did you send in your 2026 top 25 rookies? Did you fill out that spreadsheet yet?
No, but I got the email message that it's due by the 3rd. So I set a reminder
Okay.
to sit down and do it Saturday night. I want to take it serious.
Okay. So when you do that exercise, I mean, you're probably going to do it very similar to me. I did not look at anybody else's rankings. I don't care, because I think anybody that's trying to like watch the players and tell me they know how they're going to translate to Dynasty, like that's just a dinosaur way of probably trying to evaluate it. No shade. It's just, it's hard for me to say somebody can watch this player, you know, Georgia versus South Carolina, and tell me how they're going to fit into the Raiders offense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just so far removed from being useful information. What I was trying to do is just rank the tiers based on projected draft capital, which is still very inexact at this point, but also just kind of based on the positional scarcity of what I think dynasty managers are going to chase, because they're going to have to chase something. There's always trends of like, we're fading receivers now. Like mid receivers don't have the same value they did a couple years ago. More people are chasing running backs now. Like mid-tier quarterbacks they have a floor price, but very rarely do you ever get a ceiling price unless you're trading away an elite quarterback. But Shane, it was depressing because I put 6 quarterbacks in my top 10, top 11, top 12.
Why?
And it's simply because A, there's not a lot of running backs.
Yeah.
It's just not a good running back class. B, sure, there's going to be receivers. There's going to be good receivers. There's probably going to be, I mean, we were talking last night, Ray thinks there could be 6 or 7 receivers that go in the first. But then I'm like, you know, Xavier Legette went in the first, and so did Matthew Golden. You know what I mean? Like every first round receiver isn't like, oh my gosh, they're going to smash. And so I'm not counting, even if we get 5 receivers, I'm not necessarily putting the receivers over the quarterbacks, and like it or not, until I know a quarterback is not declaring, I'm going to put them on the board. I'm going to put Ty Simpson on the board. I'm going to put Dante Moore on the board. I'm going to put Lenoris Sellers on the board, because if they come into the draft, they're probably not coming into the draft to go in the 5th round. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the 27 class has a lot of good names. So I do think there's going to be a quarterback or two that jumps into this draft that maybe we don't expect. And so I still think we're going to have a draft class where there's just a demand for quarterbacks, and we might have a class full of Kenny Pickett's and Jackson Darts, and we just hope that they latch on. But that doesn't really excite me. The reason I brought this up is that a class where you're telling me we need to be bailed out and hope we get 5 first-round quarterbacks, that doesn't really excite me if you're telling me that's what it's going to take to have like route value with the first-round picks. Not in this quarterback market. You know what I mean? I mean, look at Cam Ward, Shane. You can't sell him for anything. And he was the first overall pick and probably a better prospect than any quarterback coming into this year's class. You agree?
Yeah.
And after a month of him sucking, he's destroyed. You know who the people that like Cam Ward in Dynasty? The people that have him and refuse to trade him for 50% of what they paid. Those are the people that like him. It's nobody going, oh my God, this guy's going to be good. Buy in now, buy low. It's like, I'll take him if he's available for cheap. But like, that's how we're treating a guy that was the 101 and almost the clear consensus QB1. And you're telling me there's going to be like 4 or 5 more guys that are less than that are coming in next year? I mean, I'm a little concerned with the value of the 26 picks. Are you thinking about maybe moving off of them and just making a big bet like old Josh McAtee? I think he said any pick past the 103 in this class, he's getting rid of. And that's a high bar.
You know, I don't want to say I come to it late, right? Because I don't watch as much college football as you guys. But yeah, when I try to do the math in my head, you know, obviously I listen. There's the wide receivers. There's Mekhi Lemon. There's Denzel Boston. There's Tyson Jordan, Carnell Tate. Jordan Tyson. I'll call him Tyson Jordan until the day.
You'll figure you'll get his name by like the 12th mock.
Yeah, by the 12th mock, I'll get it right. But that's troublesome if you have to plug 6 of those quarterbacks in there, because this class is not a good quarterback class from what we've seen, right? We could be wrong. Remember, they draft off trades, but coming into the season, we were all locked and loaded with Drew Allar, Lenoris, Gus, Nussmeier, not Gus, whatever his freaking first name is, doesn't matter. But either way, there's a bunch of quarterbacks. It's just
Klubnik, Nussmeier,
Yeah,
and
Club Nick,
Alar
thank
were
you.
the guys that were 2+ year starters. They checked all the boxes of being the unflappable, experienced starters that everybody wanted to come back to school, and they did. And all of them are really not even in a discussion. Maybe Nussmeier creeps back into the first round, but like the other two are completely off the board. And then the guys that right now are trending to be like the first rounders, Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Sellers, like these guys don't have the experience, right? If you just took those three, I think their average starting experience is like 10 games. Like that's not what's trending in the NFL. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a little bit of projection on these guys, which means they may not start right away. They may not be ready right away. Like you may know if one of them hits the perfect spot and is just clearly a tier above all the others. But like, what if these guys don't? Here's the thing we know, Shane, the quarterbacks are going to have some demand in the NFL. Going to be a couple teams that are talking quarterback. Now you hope they kind of have the discipline and they don't overdraft guys, but there's going to be a couple first round quarterbacks. So it just feels like we're going to have to assign some prerequisite value to a quarterback that goes in the first round. But look how people treat the quarterbacks that literally don't come into the league and take it over. We bury them. They suck. Look at Bryce Young. Look at Cam Ward. Like they were written off when they're not good right away. You really think a quarterback that goes to the Jets or the Browns is just going to step in and just be what everybody wants? That's just, I'm skeptical. And that's what we need for the class to be a little legitimate. I don't know, man.
Well, and we might be in a position where, you know, a lot of these guys that we thought were going to be 1 year, 6 week starters are competing for jobs next year. Like Mac Jones, like Joe Flacco still around, Aaron Rodgers, like all these dudes that we were hoping would go away in the NFL.
You saw the Steelers. The Steelers hope Aaron Rodgers returns.
I would too.
The Steelers hope he returns when they look at the fact they're probably going to win like 10 games, go nowhere. Yeah. And if he retires, they're looking at like, man, Shane, what quarterback can we get at pick 23?
And that's the thing.
None.
They don't even get the pick of the litter. It's just literally like what scraps are left. Oh, is it Kenny Pickett part 2? Like I would have PTSD. I would just be like, we're going without a quarterback.
And that's probably why they're like secretly, hey, Aaron, you want to maybe come back? Can you do it one more year, please?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. I get it.
Yeah. So
I get it.
That was just a takeaway for me. Like that has me, I don't want to say I'm selling every 26 first, right? We'd be stupid to get entirely out of a class.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with that, just looking at today's landscape, and now if you told me quarterbacks were at an all-time high demand and everybody wanted them and people were throwing firsts around, even for guys like T-Law and Kyler, you know what I mean? Like, but those guys don't even net a first when you're trying to sell them for the most part. So like, why would I want to invest in a class where I'm kind of hoping that the quarterback class is what can bring it up? Other than that, you're looking at a couple elite players, maybe a running back, maybe a tight end, receivers. And not all first round receivers are created equal. You have Carnell Tate, and there's a few other guys like Chris Bell and Chris Brazel. Like there's enough names, but just because there's 6 first round receivers doesn't mean that's 6 must have dynasty assets. That doesn't make the tier break 110. You know, it really depends on like, what can I do with those players? If you're just stuck picking them because there's nobody else to pick, like you're drafting yourself into, you know, a Quentin Johnston or a Zay Flowers. You remember that from a couple of years ago where you were just like forced to pick those guys because they were first rounders? Like, I don't want to be stuck in that class when it's too late. So I'm willing to move my 26 first, maybe a little more aggressively than prior years. Have you sold any 26s recently?
Yeah. I have leagues where it's all or nothing, where I either have multiple 26 firsts or none 26 firsts. Few exceptions here and there, but yeah, I'm not shy about moving them when the team dictates that I should buy. Right? If my team dictates, no, that's what I'm saying here. If my team dictates that I should be a buyer, I'm going to buy. I'm not going to. It's a 26 first. I don't care, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you know how many times I've been outside, made a trade, and I'm like, all right, I got to go pay the league safe now. You know what I mean? You get that message. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. Because if my team dictates that that's what I need to push me over, it's already a competitor. I was going to say competitor, but that's not the word. If my team's already a competitor, yeah, I'll throw a first into the ring. Now, generally, This isn't a team that I think is a legitimate 6 seed, right? There's teams right now that I do have like in a 7, 6, 5 seed, right? But that's because I've built the team up through the season. And now at this point, it is a legitimate contender, even if the seed doesn't actually show it. So in those cases, I'll still buy too.
Yeah, I think the key is, and there was a question in here that I'll get to about handling a lot of leagues. I think the key is just having a process and procedure when you're doing it. Like sometimes you may trade a pick away and then you get bounced in the first round. You know, you lose, you don't get a buy, you lose in the first round. It's the 107 or it's the 108. It happens. But I think it's more of really having some criteria for yourself. Like if you clearly are a top 4 team, or you're a team that has lost like Jaden Daniels or Lamar or Rashee Rice, and you're just kind of getting back now. Like maybe you can expect that 5th place team to get into the top 3 or maybe to the top 2. But other than that, like you should have that criteria. And I'm willing to go on almost all of those teams. And maybe it'll be another week or 2. It just depends on when the market opens up. And a lot of our leagues don't have a trade deadline, so I can wait a little bit longer. But if you have a trade deadline, you probably got to act in the next couple weeks. I want to try to get rid of a lot of those picks. And I want to try to get rid of the picks at the value when they're still viewed as a random first. Not when we start discussing the class. Not when we start doing mocks. Because we're going to be doing mocks on the channel in February. And it's going to be like, man, Shane, I don't even like these picks. It's gross at the 110. You know what I mean? It's gross at the 19. And that's just a macro bet that I'm willing to make given the current landscape. So I want to hit a few questions before we go.
Yeah, good. I started a bunch.
Yeah, no, I wanted to hit some of these. First one was, as a commish, how do you handle managers that don't start their studs, claim they forgot, even if it's reverse max points for? So it's, it's bulletproof. They're not actually gaining anything by not starting them, but it does. Yeah. It does hurt the competitiveness, right? Like one team can get a free win, and then the next week they set their lineup and they beat somebody. Like, do you do it? You don't have a lot of leagues you commish, but what's your thoughts on this? Like, it has nothing to do with the draft standings, but it messes with the damn head-to-head weeks.
No, throw them out. Absolutely. Throw them out. Because head-to-head, for most leagues only give that last playoff spot, the last playoff spot to the highest scorer, right?
If you're lucky.
Right. If I'm pulling off, but if I get a bunch of cheap wins because Joe Dick doesn't put his players in, like that's actually messing with the league. To me, I'm fine throwing them out. Give them one warning. You know what I mean? A public warning, so everyone knows it. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to do it publicly. But like you're hurting the competitiveness, whatever. You're hurting this league's integrity. I'll throw you out. Whatever. It's in the bylaws. That's why we put in the bylaws that this isn't the exact wording, but the commission can kick you out or take actions that are in the best interest of the league.
Yes. I mean, I think as a commish, what you need to do is listen. What you don't want to have to do is go in and start managing teams for them. Right? You're a commish. You don't want to go manage other teams because they're not doing what you think they should do. I would simply put something in there about wherever you have your section about max points for, draft order, tanking, whatever it is. Just putting something in there that says you need to do the best you can to start the most competitive lineup. Not a lineup. I mean, some leagues I'm in, we just say you have to start somebody that's active on game day. Now, everybody knows that, so some people do it. Like they'll start, you can start like A.J. Dillon when he's active. He's only going to get 1 touch, but you can start him. He's technically an active player.
Right.
But I think if you just put something in there about you have to start the most competitive lineup you can, and only in drastic situations can the commish go in and fix it. Like if it is something that is clearly egregious, the commish can fix it. But what I don't want to do is the commish that goes, oh, Shane, you sat that guy and he was projected 12 points and you put a guy in there that was projected 9. Like that, I need to fix that for you. Like I don't want to have to take that level of micromanagement for other people. No,
not that. Me and Sean, it's funny, Sean, I don't know if he's still in here, but me and Sean are in a league. He commissions. And there was a trade that a couple of the dudes didn't like. It wasn't a great trade, but it clearly wasn't collusion in any way. And it wasn't even that bad. Just looking at calculators, just as an unbiased opinion. So another 2 of the owners decided that they were just going to make a ridiculous trade. Sean kicked them out of the league. He asked me what he should do. He asked a few of us. We said, kick them out of the league. Like it's clear collusion. Like they pretty much, not pretty much, they blatantly stated that they were going to do something like that. So kick them out.
Yeah. In your bylaws, I mean, I always put something in the bylaws, like you said, that basically as the commish, I can do whatever I want when I feel that I need to do it. And hopefully
Nothing
your
wrong with
commish
that.
has enough respect. Like you're not going to do that whenever you feel like it. But in situations where you have to step in, you don't need a league vote. You don't need to talk to 10 people. You just do it for the betterment of the league and nobody questions it. So, let's see. Hit a couple of these. John says, love our work. Appreciate it. 1 in 7 injuries killed him. Can't get his first back. Looking like a top 5 pick. Recovery mission is now in motion. Any quick thoughts on this? It's one of the most helpless feelings you can have when your team sucks. You don't have your first. I know what I do, and it's usually try to scrap as bad as it can be for the other team. But like,
that's generally what I do too. It's like, all right, how do I get this from being a top 5 pick to like the 7th pick? Is there any, or the 6th? Well, that's not as good. The best you can make
you
it is
fill your roster with players to get your max points up a little bit. Like, if I'm going the other way, one trick that I have, and maybe this is against the spirit of leagues, but Shane, I'm in some leagues where there's nothing in the bylaws. You know how many players I have on my team? Like 15.
Enough to start.
I just don't carry players. So my points for is low because I don't have any players. And, you know, it is a league where there's not a lot to pick up, but I don't have to pick players up. And I look, and it's not that I don't want to pick them up, but if they are not players that I think I can ever use for my construction going forward, like I don't need to pick them up. But shy of that, like I'm probably grinding to try to make that pick as low as possible, just out of pride. But there's not much else you can do, man. Like, I don't know. You can approach the manager, but have you ever done that? You ever approached the manager just and begged for your pick back?
Begged? No, that's not my style. But I'm funny and disarming, so I can just act like I'm your friend.
I'll give you a half off a roster review if you kick me a discount on this pick. Oh, good question.
But yeah, I mean, look, and the other thing is that's like that sunk cost fallacy, right? You've already lost that first. That first is gone. Don't even think about it anymore. Do what's in the best interest of your team going forward. And if that's me trading players to get other picks, then that's fine. It sucks that I don't have my own pick, but if I have 2 or 3 other firsts, I'll live with it.
So I wanted to put this up there. Normally we do trade questions. So if you're watching this, our trades are typically all answered on Dynasty Deal Show on Friday. So become a member. We'll literally answer unlimited trades. We have people that'll ask 4 or 5 in a night. So if you want all your trades answered, jump in there. It's only $3.99 a month. You get 4 episodes a month. But real quick, late first or Javonte Williams, Shane. I'm assuming you need a running back here. You want the points. We just spent 15 minutes kind of shitting on wanting late first. But my answer is no on this, only because this would be like a last where I would do this. I would want to try to go cheaper. Even if I couldn't get Javonte, I'd want to get something else that I wouldn't have to pay a first for. You agree?
Yeah, like how do I go get Rico Dowdle? Can I get Tyron Tracy? I mean, there's multiple
anybody that's cheaper. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But if shotgun to my face and it's week 14 and I'm in the playoffs and this trade still
and you have 3 minutes to make the trade, and that's the only one you're going to get done, and you have to hit accept or reject.
We're done. Then we're doing it. Your league too, so just take that context into it. You should know if you're going to be able to make trades for those people or not.
Nishard is at Blaziani. I think I said that right. It's difficult to find a fair deal for a spot start injury bailout without seconds or thirds. They don't mean shit until you're in that spot. Now you're in a pickle. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, especially seconds. I think thirds are more for the literally like 1 week spot start quarterbacks, running backs, that type of thing. Thirds, usually you have to use a third to get something from somebody, even if it's something there was no other market for that player at all. If I go to Shane and I go, Shane, I want this player from you. Your mind goes, well, I have him, you don't. Give me a third. And I could say, well, no one else in the whole world's going to ever offer you a third. And you're like, fine, I'll just keep him. So it's like the third is the reserve price on the old eBay, where like I'm not going to send it to you unless you pay me $10. Like you have to match something or I'm not going to trade. But that does feel right. Like this is why you have those picks. It's not to bank on the hit rates. It's to move them for stuff that you need week to week.
Absolutely.
Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, I wanted to answer this one. How do you have time for 45 leagues, or how do you enjoy 45 leagues? Honestly, yeah, every play hurts or helps to a degree. Yes. I don't know about you. You're probably the same, though. I don't sweat my games on Sundays. I just don't care much. Like, I'll look at them casually, but like I'm not living and dying by every play.
Hmm.
I've been able to just sit back and enjoy watching the games. And I know my teams well enough where if certain things happen, I'm probably doing better than if other things happen. But I don't sit there like sweat every play, only on like Monday Night Football last quarter where I'm sitting there going, okay, I have 7 matchups in the, in the balance and I'm rooting for, a catch or a touchdown or something like that. But I don't really think it's that. And how do I enjoy the 45 leagues? Like it's my sweet spot.
Yeah.
I know yours is a little lower, but I just run. They're systematic. You know what I mean? They're just, I enjoy running them that way. So
and there's multiple players that have at least 18 to 30% shares of rostership. And if Jalen Hurts is going off, besides the fact that I'm an Eagles fan, it's probably a good week for me. If AJ Brown's going off, it's probably a good week for me. If Kyler Murray, Devon Chain, Ashton Genty, you know what I mean? Like, the players you have the most of, and which players you don't have a lot of.
If Cam Scatterbo was ripping 30+ point games, he's probably going against Shane in like 10 weeks.
Every time Amon-Ra St. Brown goes off, I'm just hoping I'm not playing him. But I'm not watching the game. I'm not watching my fantasy scoring until Monday night, usually Sunday night. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll peak Sunday night because I've started writing up Follow the Volume, and I'll go, oh, this guy that I have 4 of, he went crazy. I wonder how I'm doing in this league. But honestly, even if you're just in 1 or 2 leagues, I've found it's more enjoyable just to watch football. You know what I mean? Like, you've done what you can. Scoreboard watching your fantasy game's not going to change anything. It's not. Now, you can make moves at the 4:00 game, obviously, but usually in Dynasty, there's not that many decisions where it's like, oh, it's a coin flip. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to take out this guy and put in Trey Tucker because now I need a 50-point game, so I'm going to shoot the upside.
There's time for that too at the end of the year. In the playoffs is when you can start watching game to game. You know what I mean? But just in the regular season, it's just not really worth it. Here was a quick one I wanted to answer because I thought it was going to go back to the just trading for stuff. But Otto saved a great question. Should we move seconds on teams not in contention now for players for next year? Kind of banking on the fact that if we don't like the first round, what about the second round? Like, would you be willing to buy some of these guys you can get for seconds, maybe not even for the rest of this year, but just bank that they have utility next year? What do you think? Or you still like the flexibility of just having picks in the offseason?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If I've made it this far, I'm probably not. Now, if I can get a player like Scatterbo, which we just saw his prices are wild. If I can get a player like Scatterbo for a second, sure. But outside of that, I think I'll just hold until the offseason.
Yeah, good question, Autosave. That's one that had me thinking for a second. But, I mean, there's something to be said about having picks even in the season. If you don't like class, just having picks during that January to June window. January to March, you know what I mean? Just having them allows you to do other stuff that you may not be able to do if you don't have those picks, even if you don't ever intend on making them. Let's see if you had any other comments that you liked. I wanted to put that one in there. If you're not in the Discord, patreon.com/allgas or ddfantasyfootball.com, jump in the Discord. Like, literally, we're talking about this stuff. I'm usually in there. I have a pretty much a la carte job where I can do a lot of different things during the day. So I'm always in there during the day, just talking about whatever's breaking Monday through Friday. And then Shane's usually there in the mornings and then sometimes in the evenings on his way home. But yeah, jump in there if you're not already in there. Last one. Let's end with this. This is maybe a big topic we could spend, a quarter of an episode doing. What's the biggest mistake you made early in your Dynasty career?
It's the same thing. It's the same mistake I still make. I don't make it as much, and I'm better at it.
I'm making the same mistakes a decade.
No. There's one thing that just, look, I still make it today. I don't make it as much because I'm more player agnostic, but like, I think I know what players are going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not talking about like, using, yards per route run and stuff like that. I'm talking about like players like Cam Scatterbo, for example.
Is it just like crushing on players for certain reasons? Like, it's sometimes even hard to explain why they click with you, but you're just like, I love this guy. I love something about him.
Yeah. And, for the most part, I've defeated that. I'd say I've got that defeated at like a 75% clip. There's still that like 25% of me is like, yeah, but I really like Brian Thomas Jr. and I want him to do well. So I'm just going to hold on to this hope regardless of, available evidence. Luckily, I don't do it nearly as much as I used to, but that's still probably the one thing that still creeps in there.
Yeah, I've known you for a long time, and I think you've gotten a lot better at that. Like, you still have that initially. Like, people that watch Star Car and watch it this upcoming year, you will see that N starts to really learn the rookies. You will start to develop your players that you're crushing on. You know what I mean? But as soon as something about their situation or data presents itself, you will flip and be reasonable. Even if you loved a player 2 months ago, you will definitely flip if the reasons are justified to do so. And a lot of people still hang on. You know what I mean? They continue to talk themselves into why maybe what they said before isn't true, but they're not quite giving up. Even if everything is slapping you in the face saying, Shane, it's time to just move past it. You've done that very well, I think, where, you still get your players that you like, but you will flip it if the data says otherwise. So I think that you're way, and there's no problem with doing it as long as you're willing to adjust. You know what I mean? If you're willing to adjust, you're fine. So I think for me, it's just probably, I think it kind of goes in line with what you were saying, but it has to do more with just really not respecting how much things change year to year, week to week, month to month, and thinking that I need to look a lot more like big picture. And you don't really have to. Only probably about 10 to 20% of your roster do you really need to look big picture. Everything else is how active can I be in the short-term game? Can I find points when I need it? Can I find hot streaks? Can I find value booms where I can take advantage of? I want to have a mixture of that, but I don't have to say, okay, all my decisions in 2025 need to hold stable for 2 years, because it's impossible for that to happen. In fact, most of the decisions we may think they're long-term, but they're actually very short-term. And as soon as you accept that maybe the top 2 or 3 players on your team are things you're counting on for more than 2 seasons. Once I tell you that could be true, you would look at that other 80 to 90% of your roster totally differently than I think a lot of people came into Dynasty looking. They would think every pick they made, every trade they need to make, they need to be looking at what is this long term? And so maybe we can do another episode on that kind of concept, because it doesn't mean you just give away everything for the sake of the short term, but not everything has to be a long-term projection, because so much can erode even within those individual bets. So good show, my friend. If you don't already get us inside the community, we do our Friday morning drive where we usually just talk about what happened Thursday night, and we overreact through the roof, and then talk about the upcoming week. And then the Monday drive is usually a deconstruction, more of a big picture discussion on the week. But you get those, Shane and I, you get those Monday and Friday inside the Discord, patreon.com/allgas. And then obviously you can do a roster review if you want. Hit the QR code on the screen, and you can do a private roster review with Shane and I, where they'll literally go through your team. So you can do that. Anything else you want to say to close it out? Last episode of October?
No, this is fun one. I love when we just riff. We have an idea of a topic and then just go from there. So no, this is fun. This is fun.
Yep. All right, everybody. 2 weeks from tonight, stay tuned shortly. We're going to have a cool announcement. There'll be a fun, engaging show coming. It'll be kind of like a mega show that'll be coming to the feed. So if you don't have any plans in 2 weeks, it'll be fun. It'll be something that I haven't really seen in the Dynasty community before. So looking forward to it. More to come very shortly on that. And good luck, everybody, in week 9. We're out.